Okay, so next we're going to listen to somebody's answer. We've got a part 2 and then later on a part 3 answer. So the part 2 is talking about music and describing a band that you enjoy listening to. So you should say how you found them. So, when did you first start listening to them, the kind of music, when you listen to them, and why you like them. Okay, so that's what this candidate should be doing. Music is always quite a nice topic. There's a lot of very nice subject-specific vocabulary you can be using in your answers. You should be talking about rhythm, lyrics, albums, releases, streaming, Spotify, concerts, fans, fan cafes, I don't know, depending on what genre of music you're talking about. Okay, so there's a lot of nice specific vocabulary that you can put in here. So also a lot of nice chances for good grammar. So how you found them. I started listening to them when I was in high school. I have been a fan of them since I was 12, or I have only recently started listening to them. There's a lot of chances for some nice sophisticated grammar and good tenses in there. So let's see what this candidate has done.
I enjoyed listening to the band Arctic Monkey from England, which is around, they're originated from Liverpool and, a bit north side of England. Anyways, I found about them quite recently, So firstly, in my media studies lesson, I've learnt about the Arctic Monkey and the kind of how Arctic Monkey set up and the start of the band as well. So it kind of got me into their songs too, and I actually liked the lyrics that they're saying, and I liked the flow of the songs themselves too. And other than that, I've also learnt it through social media and a friend's recommendation when I saw a lot of Arctic Monkey songs on my feed for my social medias. They play usually rock songs, kind of rock songs and kind of British pop songs, I should say. But it's a bit like alternative. It's a bit different to the the usual pop songs. So that's what really is intriguing, because it's unusual, but the flow is really nice, and the lyrics is actually pretty pretty well written.
Okay, so that was an interesting answer. I'm also a fan of the Arctic Monkeys, so I'm excited that this candidate's talking about them. I love the most recent album. So many of the Arctic Monkey songs are very good. So if you're watching this video and you've never listened to the Arctic Monkeys, I highly recommend you go and check them out. Very classic Northern British music. So I can really appreciate. So I appreciate that answer. Okay, so the first thing that strikes me when this candidate is talking is their fluency. Okay, so there's sort of two sides of what how this candidate is talking. First off is the sort of fluency, and then also combined with their pronunciation, because this candidate has very accurate British pronunciation. Okay, they clearly have lived in the UK or studied in the UK for a long time, because they have a very British way of talking and a very British way of pronouncing words, which should be a sort of a big plus for this candidate. However, what they're really let down with in this regard is their fluency. There's a lot of hesitation. There's a lot of repetition. And there's a lot of fillers. Okay, so it's okay to use fillers. You're going, like that's totally normal. In everyday conversation, people use that all the time. I use a lot. I go back on myself. I correct myself. But this candidate is too many, okay? And that's reducing their competence or how much of a competent speaker I think they are, okay? Because when I listen to their pronunciation, my brain says, oh, this is another British person, okay? They sound like someone who's lived in the UK for a long time. So my brain says, oh, this person's British. But then as I'm listening, it's strange because their fluency and their hesitation is really putting me off, because that it doesn't match in my brain between how they pronounce words and then how clear their sentences are, okay? So it makes their ideas, the content of what they're actually saying, sound very unclear and hard for me to follow because of their fluency. So what this candidate really needs to work on in their part 2 is using their minute of preparation time. And I would really recommend, and I do say this to all my students, in your preparation time, use your memo paper and make a little list about what you're going to talk about, okay? Write down your key ideas, okay? They are answering each question, and it's going to help you move through your answer, because it sounded to me like either this candidate was very nervous or they hadn't really thought too much about what they were going to say. Now, this is common with a lot of students who are confident in their English, okay? I have some students who have done GCSEs in the UK or have lived and studied in Australia for a long time. So when they get to IELTS, they think, oh, I don't need to practice, or I don't need to prepare as much. Or I've had students who even say to me, oh, I don't need the 1 minute preparation time. I'm just going to talk. No, use your 1 minute preparation time, okay? Because this is what can happen. Your vocabulary can be good, your grammar can be fine, but it's your fluency that lets you down because you didn't use the time to prepare. And part of the speech is you have to talk like, you know, in regular sentences, in clearly moving forward, addressing the topic, okay? It's not just your pronunciation and vocabulary that makes you sound like a higher level speaker. It's the clarity of what you're saying, and that comes with practice, okay? So my real advice to this candidate would be to use their 1 minute thinking time more effectively, make a list about what they're going to talk about and how they're going to move through it, and use the list when they're talking, and practice these 1 minute speeches over and over again, okay? It's not often, in reality, in real life, you very rarely have to make a speech for a minute or 2 minutes, okay? Like you have to do in the IELTS. This is a very unnatural task to do. So just having lived in the UK is not going to have prepared you to do this task well. So you need to practice making 1 minute speeches on familiar topics, record them into your phone and practice over again, so that when you actually speak, what you're saying is clear and easy to follow. Because this candidate, their answer kept sort of going back and he sounded unsure. There was gaps, there was hesitations, there was, you know, he was pausing. So that made me think, oh, he doesn't really know what he's trying to say, or maybe his English isn't that good. Okay, that reduces how well people think about your English, or how well people perceive your English ability, okay? So this is going to be my top advice to this candidate. However, in terms of positives, okay, vocabulary, great, okay? And this is where clearly this candidate spent time in England, because they have a lot of very native-like level songs. I'm really embarrassed now. I'm worried if this candidate is going to come into the comments and say, I've never been to England, in which case I was totally wrong. But however, maybe just from listening to Arctic Monkeys, you've learned this. But when they said that they did media studies as a class, I was like, I bet this kid has been to the UK. But so some of the great phrases they use, okay? They talk about how they got me into their songs. Okay, this is a great phrase. Okay, how did you first learn about them? Oh, it was through a friend got me into listening to K-pop, or it was through watching a film that I got into BTS. I'm sorry, I'm just thinking about only K-pop bands coming to my head right now. Or it wasn't until I went to high school that my friend got me into Radiohead, or another band like that, okay? So this is a really good phrase, basically meaning, how did you get interested? This made me interested in their music, okay? And you can basically use it about any hobbies, okay? I only got into football when I graduated middle school. Or it was my dad who got me into traditional Korean dance, or whatever it is that's your hobby, okay? This is a really nice phrase to use. He uses some specific vocabulary. He talks about lyrics, which is nice. He talks about the flow of the songs, which was one of the reasons he likes them. So that's a very good, nice. It's quite difficult to talk specifically about why you like a song or why you like music, but talking about the flow of the song. He could also have used the word rhythm. I like the rhythms of the songs. You know, I really love their choruses. Something like that is really good. He uses a very nice link where he says, other than that, to transition between his points. He sort of talks about how much he likes the flow of the songs. Other than that, I also really like the lyrics, or other than that, I also really like the music videos, or something like that. So that's a really nice transition phrase to use. He talks about he says about how they were found out about them. which is good. He uses kind of a lot as a filler. You know, they're kind of from the north of England. They're kind of a rock band. They're kind of alternative, okay? This is a very nice phrase that a lot of native speakers use in the UK. The only thing that came up that wasn't quite correct was when he says that how he found about how the Arctic monkeys set up. Okay. So this is one of sort of the issues is that you set up a band, but you don't find out about how they set up. It would be say how the Arctic monkeys were formed or got started. Okay, that's the sort of natural way to say it. We wouldn't say I found out how the Arctic monkeys were set up. Not really for a band. You don't really set up a band. You tend to form a band. A band was formed. I formed a band with my friends. Okay, so that would be my only correction in terms of the vocabulary. Okay, grammar also pretty solid, but what's holding the grammar score back is the fluency, repetition, and hesitation. Okay, makes it sound like the candidate's not confident. It retracts from their sort of grammar and coherence score because I can't really follow their train of thought to check in what type of grammar structures they're using. Okay, so that's going to be my biggest advice to this candidate. So let's look at the answer to their next question.
I enjoyed. That's actually a great question. The music industry has been changing quite a lot and in a rapid pace too. So I shall say the music industry will actually change in the future too. For example, in the 1980s, pop songs from artists such as Michael Jackson was famous, whereas in the 1990s, some new generation of pop songs were coming up, and in the 2000s, new genres such as electronic or hip hop developed a lot too. So in the future, these genres kind of fuse in together, might come up to. I think it is becoming more kind of international. The type of songs that young people do listen to, because I myself listen to African music, which is obviously in a different continent, whereas some of my friends do listen to some American music, British music, and I think because the world itself has been globalized and the ease of kind of sending information from country to another country, I think the pace of music has also changed in that sense.
Okay, so again, that was quite a sort of a nice answer, but I mean, a lot of my feedback is going to be pretty similar to what we talked about before. So let's just go into things I liked. So grammar, we got some nice tenses, has been changing, were coming out. So you've got some nice variety in grammar there. I would have liked to see in this answer and the previous answer a little bit more variety of grammatical structures, okay? Again, this is something that actually students who haven't been abroad tend to focus on more, is about practicing their grammar, while students who have been abroad tend to be more confident in their speaking, but don't necessarily show me all the grammar structures they can use naturally in their answers, okay? So that's what I want to see, a little bit more variety. They could have used a hypothetical, if globalization continues, I expect more people to be using Spotify, or as Spotify continues to grow into the future, I expect to see it continuing to change the music industry, or what else, something like that. Vocabulary, great. We had some specific genres, electronic and hip hop music. Use some will actually change. So the use of the word actually is quite a native speaker thing to use. Will actually change. Well, actually, I'm not really that into that type of music. Something like that. More kind of international. Again, a nice sort of native speaker kind of phrase. I just said kind of. Did you hear that? A nice native speaker kind of phrase. So we use that kind of phrase all the time. I just did it again. So that was all really good. You can practice using these yourself. It's quite difficult to put these phrases in if you're not used to speaking English, especially with British people. But I recommend for candidates who maybe haven't lived or studied abroad that you can pick out a couple of these that you like and just practice picking out one or two and trying to drop them into your answers a couple of times, okay? So if you pick up the phrase kind of or pretty or like, and just practice putting them into your answers. And you don't have to do loads, just one or two in your answers will show an examiner that you know how to use them, okay? Pronunciation, again, great pronunciation. I like the sort of, we'll just talking about these decades, okay? Being able to say naturally 1980s or 1990s. This is something that some candidates don't practice using. This could also come up in your listening, that they could ask you to write down the decades, okay? So make sure that you're confident being 1990s, okay, and be able to practice it like that. He also had a very nice pronunciation of British, which you know is traditionally written British, but British people, especially from London or from Essex or from the areas around London, tend to drop our T's. And so it comes off as British instead of British. So that made me think that maybe he's been to London or somewhere close to London, okay, where we tend to pronounce it like that. When I went to university in London, I started doing that. And so I would say to my parents, I'm going to go to the British supermarket now, instead of I'm going to the British supermarket now. So that was very British pronunciation. And you can practice that just for fun by yourself. Any word with a T in it, just try taking out the T. Okay, I'll give you a list of words. Instead of water, it's water. Okay, instead of, what's another word with T in the middle? Instead of chocolate, it's chocolate. Just take your T's out. Oh yeah, bottle. People like saying this one. Instead of bottle of water, bottle of water. Okay, so you can practice that by yourself. But this candidate had a nice natural pronunciation of the word British. Okay, like someone who's from London. So that was nice. Again, fluency, pausing. They kept sort of going back a little bit in their answers. It was better than part 2. But there was issues with self-repetition, self-correction. What do I mean by self-repetition? When we say, well, I think that I thought that when you repeat the same phrase and correct it again. So this candidate did that a couple of times. So again, I think overall, this candidate, what they really need to work on is definitely their fluency and coherence, okay? And this is just practice, okay? Practice more different types of questions. And some candidates don't think this. Repeat the same question again, okay? Do it once, record it, listening to it, do it again and record it again, okay? A lot of people just do a practice question once, look at the score, and then never go back and do it again. That's totally wrong. When your teacher gives you back your task 1 or task 2 essays, rewrite them using the comments to get a better score. When you listen to what your teacher said about your speaking result, go back and record it again. That's how you get better at the fluency and coherence, okay? So practice, and I would recommend this candidate goes back and re-records their answers to these questions. Grammar, range, and accuracy, I thought was pretty good. I wanted to see a little bit more, but definitely I would sort of give them around a 6 for this. Fluency and coherence is dragging them down, I think, to sort of a 5.5 kind of level. Lexical resources and vocabulary I thought was great, as sort of a 7. And then pronunciation also was, I think, probably like a 6.5, just because the fluency and the hesitation and repetition actually made it more difficult to follow what they were saying. So that actually sort of limited their pronunciation, and especially their sort of intonation of bringing their voice up and down in terms of, well, I'd never heard of the Arctic Monkeys before my friends recommended it to me. And I mean, it's kind of alternative rock, but I'm kind of into that now, like when your voice goes up and down a little bit. So you've got kind of like, this kind of has an interesting range of strengths and weaknesses, clearly what they're sort of stronger at, and then sort of what they're weaker at. I think it would definitely be fair to have this candidate come out as a 6, for sure. They're definitely capable of getting up to a 7 or a 6.5. It's just, this is what's letting them down, once they get confident and clearer in their answers, then I think they're definitely going to improve. So I would say a 6 for now. And I would feel I'm grading that a little bit strictly, but definitely the potential to get a 6.5 or higher.